Marketing. This is a concept in business that covers many areas. Public relations, content, online advertising, traditional advertising on the radio or newspaper, SEO, and figuring out if something like TikTok is right for your business. Good marketing can help your target audience learn more about your business and encourage customers to engage with your organization. However, as with anything in business, understanding how to market or what the best ways to market your business can be difficult to identify. In the third episode of our three-part professional series, I speak to Andrew Joseph of AJPR, a public relations firm based in New York that's one of the leading PR firms for clients in the shelter, design, and lifestyle industry. Andrew's team represents a range of clients, including many sustainability-based organizations like the Sustainable Furnishings Council, to help increase brand awareness and get their clients seen by their target audience. On the final episode of this three-part professional series, I speak with Andrew to explore what public relations is, how effective marketing can benefit a sustainable organization, and his advice for sustainability champions as they begin to market their brands. I hope you enjoy the episode. Hey, Andrew, thanks so much for joining the Sustainability Champions podcast. Great to have you on the show.
Daniel, thank you. It's really an honor. I've had the pleasure of having a few of our clients be on your podcast. So when I was asked, I felt like it was very much an honor.
Well, I appreciate that. And as we were saying, we're very grateful for all of your support and help as well. And on the point of having clients on podcasts, if we just take a step back, I like to start kind of big picture and do a bit of an elevator pitch just so we can get an idea of what it is that Andrew Joseph PR does.
Sure. When I moved to New York in 1999, which seems like 100 years ago, my first job was in publishing. I was at Vanity Fair and then Allure magazine, but back in the day, I was in beauty and fashion. I did beauty and fashion PR for a number of years in New York, and young guy moving to the big city. It was all very glamorous and fun. And then really, I just hit a wall with fashion and beauty. I felt like it's so fast paced and ephemeral. And so I had a 30-something midlife crisis where I knew that I liked doing PR, but I really wasn't sure which direction I wanted to go. And I found a position at another firm that worked exclusively with architects, designers, and luxury home furnishings. And I immediately felt at home in the industry. I was at that other job for about 6 years. And then this last summer, I celebrated a decade in business on my own.
Cool. Congratulations.
Yeah.
And this business that you started, what exactly does it do?
It depends on who the client is and what their goals and objectives are.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I work with a very well-established company called Kyle Bunting, and he is the master of hide rugs. And for him, he has an established marketing team. He has an established social media team. And so for him, we're really coming to him with just big picture ideas. For other brands that are maybe starting out or who are a little bit newer to the scene, we're doing absolutely everything from social media strategy, social media implementation, traditional public relations, designer relations, business development, traditional public. I mean, it's really all over the place. And it just depends on, some companies really like doing their own social media, so we don't go there.
Mm-hmm.
And some need all the help that they can get, and we do everything for them. It really depends on how much you want to take advantage of the skill set we bring to the table.
Makes sense. And what would you say in terms of marketing, advertising, PR? I mean, what are some of the biggest challenges associated with it? Because this is an area that I think all businesses need to really focus on. Otherwise, you have a business, you have a product or service, you're really putting a lot of time and effort into creating something that is probably very meaningful to you as a business owner. That's kind of the way I'm thinking about it. And now you want people to actually notice it, buy it, love it,
Yeah.
share it with their friends.
My social media director came up with an idea to do a motivational Monday post, and it's a picture of me with a quote. And today's post was, if you're not telling your own story, someone else is going to tell the story for you.
Interesting.
And I think that I mean, if you can narrow public relations and marketing down to a handy little catchphrase, I think that's a really good one, because I think that does say a lot about what we do. I mean, we are at heart storytellers, whether that be in the form of a newsletter, whether that be in the form of a pitch, whether that be in the form of a post on Instagram. What we do is we look at the companies, what their values are, what their pillars of business are, and we extrapolate that into a public relations campaign that tells the story of the brand.
And why is that story so important?
I think in a very busy marketplace, people want to know the story behind a brand. They want to be able to resonate. Here's a great example, maybe a little out there. But I worked with a young tattoo artist for many years, and we befriended his family and became, very friendly with them. And in the pandemic, they went very QAnon. And at that moment, I was like, I can't control, what other people's opinions are, even if they're kind of in the crazy zone, but I can control where I spend my money. And I think more and more, as we live in a very complicated and sometimes very divided world, we want to make sure that we're spending money with companies that align with our values, and that's partially where public relations comes into play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really important because and something that I've sometimes talk about is the importance of actually talking about within the context of this podcast and this conversation. We're focusing on companies that are in the environmentally friendly space, but this actually applies to really any company, but specifically within sustainability. If I'm a company and I'm doing all of these amazing things in sustainability in the background, it's really important that I actually talk about it, because otherwise there's no way for any of my clients or stakeholders to know what we're doing. And sometimes it feels kind of awkward, like you have to sell yourself, and maybe if you're feeling a little humble or you're a little shy, it feels strange to really like say, here's how wonderful we are. But without that, people just won't know. And like you're saying, there's so many options.
Why would they know?
Exactly.
Yeah. Um,
Exactly.
here's a great example. We did a newsletter for a client called Western Sensibility. They are a digital printing company out of Montana. They have two arms to their company. One where they work with artists to scale their artwork into fabric and soon to be wallpaper.
Okay.
But then they also work with designers to do one-off collections. Let's say they wanted to match artwork in a room, or if they aren't finding a fabric. Well, the process of their digital printing is very environmentally friendly and sustainable. And so that was part of the newsletter. And I got great feedback from the newsletter that ended up turning into an opportunity for them to be in a program called the One Room Challenge. And it was all because of the founder of the One Room Challenge resonated with the fact that they're a sustainable digital printing company. So
There you go.
that's where your story where your story wins you opportunities.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, it's so important. Would you say that there is, for anyone who is feeling kind of uncomfortable talking about how wonderful they are, is there maybe a tasteful or a tactful way to share your story that doesn't feel like you're really tooting your own horn too much? Or perhaps even if for those who are tooting their horn too much, is there a way to tone it down? Is there like a middle ground or I guess I'm asking, what is the best approach to tell your own story in a way that looks good and resonates with?
I think embracing authenticity, and embracing authenticity is a very different thing for different people. And I think that authenticity resonates with people. I mean, I'm a little bit out there myself politically. I'm very outspoken. I am definitely very leftist. And I that's what I talk about all the time. And I feel like if I'm authentic to myself, then I'm going to bring people into my world that resonate with that and can appreciate that. So I think that if you're trying to be something that you're not, that's when you get into trouble. But if you're just really authentically being you, that's the story to tell.
And what about, and I think this is a common fear, especially for those starting out. What about if you are being authentic and then you don't, and then you end up, scaring some people away because you're not, what if your product is for quote unquote everybody? And by being authentic,
Well, then I think you have to come up with a brand story that achieves that,
yeah,
which is very different.
yeah, because I think with I agree with being authentic. First of all, it makes your life so much easier. You don't have to ever think about what would someone else say. You just say what you would say. And also, if you have, it's that idea of 1,000 true fans. Much better to have 1,000 fans who are extremely loyal and in love with what you do and your story, rather than maybe 10,000 lukewarm fans who sometimes occasionally maybe purchase. But if you have 1,000 people who buy every single thing you do, you can actually make a pretty decent living off of that. And having, I think embracing the authenticity, to your point, is really the best way forward, because then you find your tribe and you create a niche, and you really have that strong point there that people can actually go around. In the sustainability space, which is becoming every day seemingly quite crowded and there's just a lot happening and a lot changing. What can companies do? I mean, how would you approach the storytelling aspect, or perhaps marketing or advertising, when working with a client that is in the sustainability space?
Well, I'm gonna answer this in a circuitous
Okay.
way. um, at the beginning of the pandemic, I had an email from another PR person that the Sustainable Furnishing Council was looking for pro bono PR help, and this was like March of 2020, at the very beginning of what we just went through. And I felt like that the earth was trying to tell us something at the beginning of the pandemic, and that I didn't only want to listen, I wanted to act. And
Mhm.
so I took on the Sustainable Furnishing Council with great bravado. I have seen the trend. I think what part of what we went through all across the planet globally, coming, working, living through and working through and surviving the pandemic, that I see that the sustainability movement is ever more important to brands. I think that that's part of the silver linings of what we went through over the last 3 years. And in terms of um, uh, making a difference or sticking out or um, being heard through the noise, I think that's a good problem to have. If
Mhm.
more companies are moving towards a sustainable platform, it means something is going right in this world. And then it is really just working with and making sure that the what makes you sustainable, or what makes you um, uh, uh, viable in that realm, is making sure that you tell the story. Again, it's very simple, I think.
Yeah. And I think you're right. It's going back to what we were just talking about, sharing the actual work that you're doing, why it's important to you, and someone will resonate. Going back to your Western sensibility story, these things absolutely resonate. If if a company is just starting out, is a PR strategy different for a company just starting out versus a company that's been around for a while?
I think I kind of answered that in terms of how we work with clients. Like some of the more established clients, we're coming up with big ideas for them. I think for some of the companies that are newer that we work with, we're a lot more hands-on, because they need a lot more work. You know, do they have a branding package? What are their colors? What are their fonts? What's their story? How, you know, what's the story you're telling in social media? Is it all about pretty pictures? Is it all about a certain philosophy, about an approach that you have towards design? Again, it's unique as the person and company is.
And how for a company that is starting out, especially considering the amount of work that goes into, I mean, this is a lot of thought that has to happen, and it's not something that's done passively. It's a very active idea of design, you know, your entire story, how you want to actually frame yourself, et cetera, et cetera. If you're looking to work with a PR agency and you're just starting out, do you have any advice in terms of how a company can actually correctly filter? I mean, what should they be looking for when talking to a PR agency and seeing if it's a good fit?
I would look at the body of work that they've done for other clients and talk to the clients that they've worked with.
Hmm.
Um, uh, you see their style to see how they work professionally together. Do they click? Do their ideas align? You know, working with a public relations firm is a big endeavor. So I think that you have to do your research and make sure that who you're getting yourself involved with is the right fit. But I mean, that's from your accountant to, you know, someone that you hire. You just, yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I feel like I'm lucky that I have pretty good instincts. I know when a client is going to be difficult, and I know when I'm going to really adore working with one.
What do you do when you find a client that you think is going to be difficult?
I have a 30-day. I mean, I worked at Condé Nast and I worked in fashion, and that meant often at times I worked with a lot of toxic people. When I started my own firm, my number one rule is no jerks. I mean, I, if you're promoting someone, if you're elevating someone's brand, you need to be excited and feel really good about the work that you're putting into that. Or just as the conversation that we had, it's not authentic and
Right.
it doesn't read right. So yeah, no toxic people.
Yeah, well, I think that's a really good rule for life in general. Not,
Totally.
and I guess going back to the point of how to pick a PR agency, I mean, I think it's important now that you mention it, is to make sure that the agency also resonates with what you're doing and is excited about your story. I mean, if I'm, you know, take this podcast as an example, I'd want to work with a PR agency that cares about sustainability, that's excited about the world of podcasting, that maybe has experience in, you know, promoting media companies, et cetera. And I think for any company that's looking for a PR agency, it's the same type of thing. You want, personally, I mean, that's just one approach, one way of thinking about it is, yeah, see if you can find an agency that actually has a bit of expertise and does care about the environment, because I'm sure there are plenty of PR agencies that for them that's not important, and that's fine. They cater to other types of clients. So yeah, I guess to your point, really take the time to learn and understand what they're looking for, and make your
Yeah,
decision that way.
totally.
And how about this idea of taking negative PR and turning it into an advantage? I think in this world of sustainability, we're seeing occasional greenwashing, and, you know, especially with some larger companies, there's some environmental disasters. Is there a way to take those kind of things and maybe turn it into, the word spin can be misconstrued, I think, but is there a way to take those and perhaps use them as a way to kickstart something better for a company, and have PR be a part of that?
Um, I don't know why, but I feel like we keep coming back to authenticity. I think if a company has made and a poor environmental decision. They've impacted the environment in some negative way. If they take that as a learning lesson and try to course correct and change the direction of their company, then I think that's a teachable PR moment. But if you're just trying to hide or cover it up, then it's just a bad experience all around. I mean, yeah. I
And
hope that
people,
answers.
I think so, and people will know, right? I mean, we have to assume that the public and whoever is reading this and consuming this information, they're intelligent and they can see through stuff.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, because I think that's where authenticity becomes really important, is this idea that you can't really fool the public, and people will actually know.
Well, and I think the public, I think one, the tenets of sustainability are more important to them, and they're more educated about the importance of it. So that seems to be part of the current uh, culture, which is again a wonderful thing.
Yeah. And would you say as a PR agency that part of your role is to encourage clients to actually make any changes within their business strategies and business model?
Absolutely. There was a campaign that we worked on with the Sustainable Furnishing Council that was initiated at the beginning of the pandemic, called the Just One campaign. And the idea was that when you look at the all of the, I mean, sustainability is an umbrella with so many things that are underneath it. And so sometimes I think people will look at, oh, I want my company to be more sustainable, more eco-friendly, friendlier to the environment, more green, whatever, however you want to name it. And then they they see that umbrella as being very intimidating. So the Just One campaign, which was a campaign done over social media that encouraged companies and individuals alike to choose just one thing that they change in their business or their personal life that embraces sustainability,
Hmm.
and to share that, with the idea that if you do just one thing, it's going to lead to another thing and then another thing. um, so I think, yeah, starting small
Yeah,
sometimes is the way to do it.
that's very true. I spoke with someone on this podcast a couple of years ago, and she and her family made a commitment basically to just every week make one little change. Starting with the smallest, easiest things, like change your toothbrush from plastic to bamboo, and then the next week maybe change your floss. And after 52 weeks, that's a lot of changes. You end up making like some pretty big sweeping changes. And I guess you could do the same thing at work with your company. Again, start small, put a recycling bin, next week put a compost bin. And I mean, if that's something you're passionate about, it also makes a great story. And there's so much content you can make with that, just as part of your PR, whether it's blog posts, videos, social media campaign, etc. So
Totally.
yeah, I think there's just a lot of opportunity to talk about things. Uh, what are there any specific key takeaways that you like to leave with your clients or any specific lessons? It sounds like authenticity is a really important one, but are there any key takeaways that you bring up with your clients, or that you'd like to leave listeners when approaching their public relations strategy?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I think our superpower as a PR firm is that we know how to connect the dots on behalf of our clients. And that's a very individual thing. For example, I have a client that was the associate publisher at T Magazine for the New York Times, and at the beginning of the pandemic decided he was climbing up the wrong corporate ladder. Um, and left the Times to become an interior designer.
Hmm.
And one of the great writers and editors that we work with is Caroline Biggs, who is the market editor at Business of Home, who happens to write for the New York Times. And I'm like, oh my gosh, let's have lunch together. Let's talk all things New York Times. That's one example for one client. But really just trying to, I mean, I remember when I started my business years ago, I had a client who was a little bit older, and he's like, Andrew, you're out all the time. And I'm like, look, as a PR person, I'm only as good as my contacts. And I don't make those contacts sitting in my office.
Right.
So just, really putting yourself out there and networking and getting to know the industry and the lay of the land. And then when people pay you to promote them, try and figure out how to connect those dots that make sense for them.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point. And that's part of, I would imagine, what makes a really good agency great is what you said, that makes sense for them. And that comes through probably really listening and understanding the business and really being thoughtful and mindful of what they need in their.
Well, I I do not want to speak ill of the firm that I left before I started my firm, but I will say it in this way. The gentleman had run the firm for almost 40 years. Um, in the 20 some years that I've been a working professional in New York, the the landscape has completely changed.
Hmm.
There weren't podcasts whenever I started Vanity Fair in 1999. There wasn't even social media. That completely changed the dynamic of how we transmit and process information. And I think that that is continuing to change on a daily basis. And so I felt like that this person didn't only evolve with the times, but was resistant to the times and had a very clear idea of how PR is supposed to be done.
Hmm.
And I think the lesson that I took away from that is if you're set on your ways and how business is supposed to be done, particularly public relations, you're the first person that's going to be a dinosaur. I will tell potential new clients, I say this might be very counterintuitive or counterproductive for you to instill your confidence in me, but I approach my business each day as I don't always know what I'm doing because I don't know necessarily what strategies worked yesterday may not work tomorrow. And so I have to be very adaptable in how I'm promoting clients, how I'm approaching social media, how I'm approaching a press release because I don't want to get stuck in my ways and I don't want to be the dinosaur.
Yeah, and I think that's really valuable because, like you said, I mean, and now things are moving even faster because there's new social media platforms that are coming out. Video is more important. I remember even just in the last couple of years, Instagram was all about photos, and then there was just a switch, and it became videos only. And there's plenty of influencer accounts that don't have a single image on their grid. It's all just video.
Just video. Yeah.
And that was just an overnight switch practically. I just remember one day I just looked and I just noticed like it's all video now. And if you're not approaching it the way that you are, Andrew, with your fresh, beginner's mind framework, then yeah, you get left behind extremely quickly and you won't even know what happened. So yeah, really important. And I think that's a really good point when it comes to thinking about your PR strategy.
And I have to say, as a 52-year-old man, I can afford to pay 20 somethings that work for me easier than I can afford to pay someone my own age. And I feel like it is very much they're learning a lot from me, but I'm learning a lot from them.
Mm.
And I find that to be very valuable in business is to have um, uh, that perspective of someone of a different gen. I mean, and then I work with clients that are much older than me.
Right.
And so being able to have that intergenerational mix, I think just makes me a better professional and a better human being.
I think it's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, And at this point, especially with the social media specifically, just as since we just mentioned it, the younger generation knows it better than anyone else. They're native to it, and to try to figure it out yourself when it's what they naturally do, and they know what to expect and how to communicate with on that specific platform, whatever it happens to be. Yeah, there's a lot of value. So I know you already mentioned a little bit about how you got started, but was there a specific moment when you realized that having Andrew Joseph PR was actually the best way forward for you rather than working for a PR agency? I know you mentioned the working for someone who wasn't keeping up with the times, but was there a moment you realized, actually, I want to do this myself and I can provide more value to my clients on my own rather than maybe switching to another firm that met your values?
It was actually like the year that I started Andrew Joseph PR. It wasn't in my 5-year plan. It wasn't even really an idea that I had tossed around. I from the encouragement of the clients that were at that firm,
Mm.
who were really like, Andrew, you're kind of running your own business within someone else's business. I don't know why you don't cut out the middle person and just do this on your own. And it was really the encouragement of those clients that made me my that made me think, oh my gosh, I can do this. And so it was really, I was pushed kind of in that direction.
That's awesome. I mean, I think that's the best way, is when your clients say, we want to work with you directly. We don't want anyone else. I mean, I can't imagine anything that can instill more confidence in terms of
Yeah.
starting your own
Uh,
business.
well, I was also in my 40s whenever I started the firm, and I also felt like I don't really want to, at this stage in life, I don't really want to go work for someone else.
Yeah. Yeah, I can appreciate that. And for anyone who's interested, and thank you very much for sharing your story and sharing your insights. I think they're very valuable, especially for those who are thinking about PR and really thinking about how to best tell their story when it comes to sustainability. And for anyone who wants to learn more about Andrew Joseph PR and perhaps get in touch or just get an understanding of what PR can do for their business, where's the best place that listeners can go?
It's andrewjosephpr.com and AJPR New York City on Instagram. And I would be doing myself an injustice if I did not also share that as a side hustle, I'm also a contributing editor at Aspire Design and Home Magazine. And I'm always looking, I do 2 columns a week, a Maker Monday and a Designer Friday. And I'm always looking for interesting candidates to include in those columns. And if they're sustainable, all the
Excellent.
better.
Well, it sounds
Yeah.
like you have you certainly stay busy, and you do a lot of interesting things both with AJPR and with the columns. Sounds like
Well,
there's
the thing that I love, I think, most about my career is there are rarely 2 days that are ever the same.
yeah, I
And that's a gift.
I can see that. Yeah, it keeps things very interesting and fresh. And also in that whole time, sorry, what was that?
Very much, very much.
Yeah. And as you're doing all that work, you're providing, I imagine, a lot of value helping companies get their stories out there. So but Andrew, yeah, thank you very much for taking the time and sharing your perspectives with me today. I think hopefully this has inspired someone to be authentic. I think that's really the major lesson I'm taking away, is how important authenticity is. It really guides everything that you do as a business, including how you communicate, which channels you use, what you say, the colors on your website, so on and so forth. So really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Daniel. You have a great day.